Welcome back to the Bluechip Breakdown, Vols fans. I'm your host, Bull. It's time for us to talk some recruiting. We'll be taking a look at what's left of the 2025 big board, and then also taking a look at some updates to the 2026 board. We've got some news and notes to go along with it as well. And also, I want to talk about JD Pickell on Eric Kane's show earlier today, I believe it was, where JD basically said that he doesn't see any way that Tennessee can beat Georgia. Now, I disagree with that. If y'all have watched this channel for a while, then y'all understand that. And some of y'all might kind of side with JD. That's cool. Some of y'all might side with me, but we'll talk about why I feel like Tennessee has a much better chance to beat UGA this season than some people want to give us credit for. But as always, please make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Definitely make sure that you are subscribed. There's so many of y'all that watch our videos on a very consistent basis, but you're not subscribed. So look up under this video down to the left. There will be a button that says either subscribe or subscribed with an ED at the end. If it doesn't have that ED at the end, then you are not subscribed to this channel. And it's something that I do all the time. I'm guilty of it myself, but just please do that for us. That helps us out tremendously. It gets the video out to more and more Tennessee fans. Also, make sure that you do click that notification bell. There were some people who missed our live stream last Saturday, and the reason that you missed it is because you didn't click on that notification bell. If you click on that, then you will get those notifications whenever we are going live or a video drops or, we drop a comment or any of that type of stuff. Y'all will see all of that. So just make sure that you're doing that if you want to stay locked in with us. Also, really big shout out and a huge thank you to everyone that is not just supporting us by liking, hitting that notification bell and subscribing, but also people who are donating to this channel. You can donate by scanning the Cash App QR code. At this point in the video, it's going to be in the top right-hand corner. And then later on in the video, you'll see it in the left part of the screen up under my little portion of this window. So you can scan that with your smartphone and you can donate as little as $1. That would help us out so much. If everyone that watches us on a consistent basis would just donate, I would say it's like $1 a month. P and I can do this thing full time and bring you a lot more content than we can do at this point. And then also really big shout out to everyone that is a member of this channel. You can become a member and help and support us by clicking that join button just below this video. You will get exclusive content that we can't share on this side of YouTube. We appreciate all of the support. Everyone that's joining us on Patreon, people that are following us on social media, that's growing. But all of those links are going to be down in the description below. If you want to contact us, email is going to be the best way. Again, that will be down in the description below. Let's go ahead and jump into the video. All right, so we'll be starting off with our big board for the 2025 class up under expected commits right up at the top. We're going to start it off with 5-star offensive lineman, the number 1 rated offensive lineman in this entire class, David Sanders. He is set to announce tomorrow, and P and I will be going live for that one. We hope that everyone will join us and just celebrate what we feel like should be a really, really big day for our program, for our university, for the future of our volunteers. It's going to be a really good one. We hope that y'all will bring that in with us on this channel. But David Sanders did put out a little teaser for his announcement last night. Let's take a listen to that.
Commitment is a daily choice to keep going, to say no to the distractions, and decide that you remain focused on your goal and do what it takes to get there. Throughout this journey, much has been required, nothing was given, and everything was earned. I have enjoyed every second in leaving my mark on the game I love. I have appreciated my journey as I am humbly blessed. I have been patient. I put in the work, seen and unseen. I have remained dedicated to my craft as I understand that one chapter is closing and now I have to write the next. I have been truly blessed to receive an overwhelming amount of collegiate scholarship offers, and without further consideration, I have chosen to continue my academic and athletic endeavors at
All right, so obviously he's a very well-spoken man. I think that video was very well done. I don't know if that's any indication of the way that he's going to announce. I'm sure that he's kind of got some things, lined up. Obviously, he's going to make it special. It's a special day for him. It's a special day for whoever he ultimately ends up choosing. And as I watched that video, I was looking for some clues. I couldn't really find too many of them, but I will say this, that about 32 seconds into that video, you will see a little bit of orange and white. Maybe that was kind of like a hint and maybe a nod to Tennessee. But also at about 42, 43 seconds in, you can see that he's got on some red, white, and black Jordan 1 cleats. Does that mean he's going to Ohio State? Is it Nebraska or is it UGA? It could be. Now, I can tell you this, Buckeye fans feel very confident, or maybe not as confident as they did before, but they still have some confidence. I feel like it's a little bit of, like false confidence, but they feel good about it. And you just never know, right? I mean, we feel great just because our insiders have been on point as far as where everything is kind of led to, up to this point in this whole process, because now there's 5 crystal balls or RPMs in favor of us landing David Sanders. But our insiders, especially over there at VolQuest, have said, man, we feel like Tennessee's in a tremendous spot. They've been saying that for months. That's where most of my confidence has come from. But also, if you just kind of read through everything, if you pay attention to all of his interviews and things like that, he's visited Tennessee the most. It just made the most sense, in my opinion, that he would be choosing Tennessee. We will find out tomorrow, though. And again, we hope that y'all will join us. Now, on to the next player. We have 4-star cornerback Onis Konabani set to announce next weekend. Still feel good about him as well. The insiders feel good about him, but it's down between us and Florida State. Now, on to the possible commits. It's still the same pretty much as it was last weekend, obviously outside of Josh Petty, who did commit to Georgia Tech. And I'll say this real quick. I'm happy that he went there, because if he's not going to be coming to Tennessee, Georgia Tech would be the second best place. Because if Georgia Tech gets things going, that would hurt the University of Georgia so much, because, I mean, they are right in the city of Atlanta, right? And we've already talked before about primarily, most of the players that end up going on to UGA, they live in more like rural areas. Like they don't really come from big metro areas. So if Georgia Tech can take away a little bit more of the talent in the state of Georgia, okay, not just in the, metro Atlanta area, but kind of, be able to get some more talent throughout the entire state. Tennessee takes away some of that talent. We all know that pretty much everyone comes to Georgia to get players because there's so many of them. But I just think that takes more and more away from UGA. And Kirby Smart is something we're about to talk about here in just a minute. He doesn't operate well without a whole bunch of talent. He needs that talent to have a good football team. So I think that everything is trending in the right direction. Anyway, Jaden Harmon, 4-star linebacker from Rome, Georgia. Sounds like Tennessee's going to continue to pursue him. And I've been watching that one pretty closely all week, like with the insiders and all that. They've had really good things to say behind the scenes. So I think that we are still going to be in a good spot for him. Hopefully, we can get him to flip at some point. I think that as the season kind of wears on and as Tennessee's defense looks better and better, Jaden Harmon probably will want to come on home to Knoxville. Now, the next player is going to be Andrew Maddox. He's a 4-star defensive lineman. I think that Tennessee is still pursuing him. We just got to get him up on campus for a visit. We are expecting that he will come up at some point in the fall. So that's really good news. He is currently committed to Ole Miss, and Jaden Harmon is currently committed to Alabama. Now, the last player is currently committed to USC, and that's D. Morris. We're still trying to get him up on campus, and hopefully he will make it up for a game in the fall. We want him to play running back for us. That would be really big if we could add one more body to go along with Justin Baker. All right, now let's talk about the 2026 big board. We've added several names. We got a lot of this information from VolQuest, but Darius Gray, who's a 4-star interior offensive lineman, has been added to this list. Also, Brett Collegier, who's another 4-star interior offensive lineman, has been added. We have Jonas Walton, 4-star running back, and then we have 4-star wide receiver Travis Johnson, 4-star defensive ends Cam Brooks, and Tristan Givens. Let's kind of get to the notes right here off of each player. Number 1, Brett Collegier, who's from IMG Academy down there in Florida. That's the powerhouse program that play a national schedule. Very high up on our volunteers. He's visited us several times over the past few months. I think that we're in a really good spot with him. Then we have Darius Gray, who's from Richmond, Virginia. He's visited on June the 1st and March the 28th, maybe a couple more dates, but those are the ones that on 3 showing. He's also very high on our volunteers. Now let's talk about the running backs. Okay, we've got a 5-star running back right up at the top, Savion Hitter. And people keep on asking, when are we going to go out and get one? It sounds like we're very close to doing that because we're at the top of Savion's list, and he is expected to kind of dwindle that down some here in the coming weeks. For sure, Tennessee will be in that whenever he shortens up that list, but that's going to be really big. We're also in a really good spot with Jonas Walton, who's a 4-star running back from Carrollton. And then we also are in a really good spot with Tyreek Green. We call him Ty Boogie from Buford High School. Now, he can also play safety, but I think that running back could maybe be his position in college. Who knows? I think it really all depends on whatever team he ultimately chooses, where they need him at the most. But he's a really, really good athlete, very versatile. We've talked before about how he really likes Tennessee. He's very high up on Tennessee. I'd say that we're probably in his top 2 as us. And I would say Alabama at this point, kind of head to head. But we really got to make sure that we pick up the steam because it does feel like Alabama is trending for him at this point. Now, speaking of safeties, let's talk about Zalis Hicks, who's the 5-star safety, also from Carrollton, Georgia. I believe it was Jason Vall who had asked me about him earlier in this week. Said, well, sounds like he's about to be, announcing here pretty soon. And he did come out and say that he's expecting to announce in the next couple of months. And I think Jason Vall was just asking, what have I heard about it? I would say that if he was announcing today or, like earlier in this week, probably would be Auburn. But as time kind of goes on, I really couldn't tell you. You know what I'm saying? I think that Tennessee is in a great spot, but I don't know how close we are. I would say that we're probably in his top three. I don't know if we're in his top two necessarily, but his other options are going to be Ohio State, Texas, and UGA. So what happens there? Again, that's probably anybody's guess. Hopefully, he just doesn't go to Georgia. Like a lot of times whenever I see players that I know are really, really good, I just don't want them going to UGA, just because that would be an absolute total nightmare. Even though I do think that a lot of times those guys, I wouldn't say that they necessarily underperform all the time, but they don't perform as well as they probably could if they went to a place that's really going to get the absolute best out of them, the most out of them, and kind of highlight all their skill sets. Georgia doesn't do that. They just play basic, basic fundamental football. And that's not always the best thing for necessarily what some of these kids want to do. I'll just kind of leave it at that. Now let's move on. Let's move on to a wide receiver, Travis Johnson. He's from Chesapeake, Virginia, and he's very high up on our Tennessee Vols as well. He is planning on coming up at some point later on in the fall. He's really close with Coach Pope. I think that Coach Pope does a great job out on the trail, just kind of identifying players and talent early on and getting close with them. So hopefully we can land him. Wide receiver is going to be another position of need for this class. We'll probably have a whole breakdown on exactly what I think we need, not just, like from a numbers perspective, but also from a body type and a skill set, things like that. We might have that one coming out for y'all next week. Now, let's get on to the defensive ends, because there's several of them out there that are now loving Tennessee. We all know that James Pierce is rated as the #1 player in all of college football from ESPN, also from Pro Football Focus. People are starting to take notice of the way that we are developing talent. That's the contrast between us and Georgia. All right, so we have Tristan Givens, and we also have Cam Brooks. That's two edge rushers. They're 4 stars. They are from Georgia. It sounds like they are high up on Tennessee at this point. But this young man right here, Rodney Dunham, who I think is going to end up being a 5-star if he's not already a 5-star. He loves him. He loves him some Tennessee. Okay, he is from North Carolina. But yeah, he is expected to be coming up for the Florida game this season. I just hope that we take care of business in that one, really all the games, especially those home games, because whenever we come out and we handle business for all these classes, right, we're talking about from, still some in 25, but all the way down to, I would say, like 28, you want to have a good product out there on the field. You want for Neyland to be rocking. Once they fall in love with everything that comes along with being a Tennessee Volunteer, kind of like outside of some of the normal stuff that we talk about, right? I think that we are going to start to absolutely kill it in all this type of stuff, just because we do such a good job already of going out, closing on players, things like that. All right, now let's talk about JD Pickell and Eric Kane. They were just talking about Tennessee's schedule for this season, and Eric Kane had brought up Georgia, and he said, I used to kind of count that one as a loss, but now I feel like we have enough talent that we can go compete and play with anyone in the entire country. And he looks at that Georgia game as more of a 50-50 coin flip type of a deal. And he asked JD what his thoughts was. And of course, I'm paraphrasing all this stuff, y'all. But JD was like, I don't see any way that Tennessee's going to be able to beat Georgia. And he kind of highlighted the fact that Tennessee operates off of spreading the field out and getting some one-on-one matchups. He feels like Georgia's secondary is going to match up well with our wide receivers. I disagree with that wholeheartedly. I'm about to show y'all why here in just a second. But he also talked about Georgia's defensive front. He said, I don't know how Tennessee is going to be able to handle those guys and all the things that they can, show to you or give to you on Saturdays. Disagree with that as well. So, number one thing that I want to say about how everyone kind of thinks about Georgia, and I'm not picking on JD because I love his content. I think that he's a really good dude. He always has good things to say about Tennessee, and he's just speaking his truth. I have no problems with that. That's perfectly fine. But I disagree. And there's a lot of other people that are kind of doing this same thing where what they're doing is just kind of looking at 2021 Georgia and thinking that every Georgia team after that is going to be the same, but it's not the same. The team last year wasn't the same. Really, even that 2022 team wasn't like the 2021 Georgia team. So, they are, I would say, from a talent perspective, it might look to be on paper like they've got the same amount of talent, but they don't. Like, they don't have the same source of playmakers that they had back in 21. That's just what it is. And I think that this team is actually even worse than the team that they had last season. It's pretty much the exact same team, but they lose Brock Bowers, who is, like 50-60% of their entire offense. You know what I'm saying? So I think that they are going to have to figure some things out. I've seen some things in their spring game where it's like, okay, maybe they're searching for some new identity, because what they used to do is focus on throwing the ball to the tight ends, focusing on the middle of the field, which I think that they'll still do a whole lot of that. But do they try to incorporate the wide receivers on the outside more, Once you start trying to get outside of yourself, something that you're not used to doing, I think that that's not a good recipe for being dominant, especially with the much more difficult schedule that Georgia is going to have this season. I don't know if they've ever had a schedule this tough since that school has opened up, since they started playing football. I'm telling you, this is going to be a big time problem for them. They've got 3 road games versus teams that can match up with them physically on the field. And I think that all 3 of those teams probably have the better coaching staff, definitely have better head coaches. Now, some of y'all are going to disagree with me on this, but Kirby Smart, X's and O's on the field. He's sound, he's fundamental, but he's not like a crazy good coach. He's not a Nick Saban. He's not a Heupel. I don't think he's a Lane Kiffin. I mean, there's a lot of coaches that I would say from an actual schematic perspective are better than Kirby Smart. He does good at going out and getting talent, things like that. But if he doesn't have that talent, if he doesn't have way more talent than everybody else, I don't see him winning national titles. That's just what it is. But let's take a look at the box score from last season's game versus UGA. I want to highlight some of JD's points and show you why I disagree. Right here, we're going to be looking at the defensive stats for both teams. I want for y'all to pay attention to the sacks column because JD said that he doesn't know how Tennessee's offensive line is going to be able to block Georgia's front. How many sacks does that say right there Georgia had in this game? They only had 1, okay? They only had 1 sack, and I know some of y'all want to know how many sacks the Tennessee have. We also only had 1 that came from Aaron Beasley on a blitz. But keep in mind as well, y'all, that we didn't have John Campbell or Andre Carrick starting. And oh, by the way, Javonte Spraggins goes down somewhere, in that third quarter. And just to kind of highlight all the other injuries for those of y'all that may have forgot, Wesley Walker didn't play. Brew, we all know, was out for the season. Dante Thornton wasn't playing in this game. Arion Carter and Keenan Pili, 2 more players that didn't play in this game. So we're pretty much going out there with the makeshift offense and defense. Now, I also want to take a look at just a few more stats just to kind of highlight how this game went, okay? We'll take a look at the passing first, right? So passing-wise, Carson Beck lit it up 24 of 30 for almost 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Joe Milton goes 17 of 30 for 147 yards. No picks, but no touchdowns either. So no risk it, no biscuit. I think that you have to take a little bit more of a risk and more chances playing up against Georgia. You can't be scared. You can't be ultra conservative because I'll show you here in just a second why. But they're going to play really, really tight covers and try to, minimize those windows. You're going to have to try to fit it into some tight ones. Now, going back to Carson Beck, how did he play this well? I'm going to tell you how he did. His team is loaded. I don't think that he's as good as people give him credit for. I mean, people are overhyping the heck out of him. He's just a regular game manager, right? And we've seen that you can take a walk-on scrub like Stetson Bennett and win back-to-back national titles playing with UGA. Now, I did say that it's not the same roster, but it ain't that far off. And we, as much as people are trying to crown Carson Beck, you would think that he's going to be good enough to win them a national title. He should have done it last season, but he didn't. Whole point is this. What do they do on offense, y'all? They throw the ball to the middle of the football field about 60% of the time. That's the easiest place to make throws at, okay? I mean, that throw is right in front of you. Will they ever start to throw the ball outside of the numbers? I think that you have to force them to do those types of things. Either way, I'm not sold on Carson Beck as this juggernaut, but also whenever you talk about the middle of that field, who's playing there? It's linebackers and it's safeties. We know for sure that as long as we stay healthy, as long as we're healthy by this game, our linebackers are going to take a huge step forward in pass coverage. So I think that we'll be able to negate a whole lot of that. Also, we all know that Brock Powers ain't rolling out there anymore, okay? I think he's a pretty good player. I think he's another one that was overrated. But let's keep on moving, okay? Because what about our safety play? That's where I'm the most concerned at versus Georgia. We're going to have to get really good safety play. Hopefully by this point in the season, we'll have it figured out. And I hope that they try to throw it outside those numbers because we're going to win those matchups every single time, especially if we do have Ricky Gibson and Jermon McCoy out there starting. Those guys are stars. Now let's look at these rushing numbers. Georgia ran the ball on us 40 times. We couldn't stop the run. That goes back to our safeties and to our linebackers. It's going to be much improved this season. I also think that the interior of our defensive line should be more improved because we're going to be deeper. We have more waves to kind of stop what they like to do. But this is Georgia ball, y'all. They're going to run the ball a whole bunch, work off a play action, dump it off to a tight end, nice safe throw. You might throw one that, looks a little bit risky every now and then. You're only going to see 1 or 2 of those every game, whereas Tennessee is going to give you 7 to 8, maybe 10 to 12, okay? It's a whole different ball game. We play a little bit more flashy. They play slow, boring. Nobody wants to watch it football, okay? But you see right here that they did a good job rushing, and Tennessee didn't. We only ran the ball 25 times, and just to kind of come back up right here, we threw it 30 times. So we threw it a little bit more than we ran it. That's not what Coach Heupel wants to do now. That was pretty close to being 50-50. But moving forward, our offensive line is going to have to be able to move their defensive line. We're going to have to run the ball well. If we can average, I'm going to say 3.5 to 4 yards a carry in this game coming up, late this season, I think that Tennessee has a tremendous chance to win it. And that's not asking a whole lot. I feel like we can do it because the offensive line is much improved. They got a bad taste in their mouth from the past couple of years. A whole lot of those guys who got to play versus Georgia, they got a bad taste in their mouth. I think that we will be locked and loaded, fully rated. We had an offensive line, y'all, that, 3 or 4 guys that really weren't starting caliber were out there doing this type of stuff versus Georgia. Now, let me show y'all this. All right, this is a screenshot from the other day when P and I was breaking down film versus UGA. We told y'all that we're looking at Will Brooks, Andre Turrentine, really the entire team. But right here, I'm not quite sure what the down the distance is. Looks like it's probably like 3rd and long. Whatever it is, take a look at the offensive line. I think that they're holding up pretty well. Okay, they're not doing a horrible job. It looks like Georgia's bringing 4 on this one. Okay, maybe even actually 3, and then this guy right here might be a spy, or maybe he just kind of blitzed late. Either way, I think that we're holding up well. And keep in mind, that's a makeshift offensive line. But at the same time, look at all the room that Joe Milton has to run right here. Okay, I mean, Nico, if Nico was the quarterback in this game, he probably would have 25 to 30 yards on this play because that's too much room. You cannot let our quarterbacks break contain, especially Nico, because he will make you pay for it, especially with the way that things look down the field. Now, let's come up here to the top because we have a player that should be open for 6. Joe Milton just misses this. Now, looks like, of course, there is a safety that's kind of playing right there, on that side of the hash. And yeah, I mean, it would be a little bit of a tight window, but you're expected to make these types of throws whenever you see shell coverage, right? So that right there was a missed opportunity. That could have been 6. Obviously, Joe Milton does have enough time to get that ball to him as well. And we know that he has the arm strength on top of all that. Now, let's look up under that right there, okay? Let's look on this 30-yard line. What's going on right here? Well, we're getting held. That's holding, folks. This is what Georgia does. Whenever they play man-to-man coverage, JD's talking about, well, we think that, Georgia's secondary is just too good. Those guys are just, they're just great athletes. Like, Tennessee doesn't have anybody. Keep in mind, our wide receiver room is way better than what we put out there versus Georgia last season. I'm just going to call it like it is. It's way better, and this is holding. So that could have been called. That should have been an automatic first down, but referees missed it. We have to be very vocal about this, y'all, because if we're not, the referees will just continue to turn the blind eye to Georgia cheating. They've been doing it for a very long time. Now, also on the 30-yard line, here's another one. Now, this right here, I mean, you could almost throw him in jail for this. This is assault. That's ridiculous. Now, we can come closer to the line of scrimmage where we're trying to get somebody out of the backfield, but we can't because we're getting held again. That's 3 blatant, obvious holding or pass interference calls, however you want to slice it, that is not called. Now, this is one player that looks like they're playing pretty good coverage. Now, he does have his hand on the wide receiver. He also has help over the top. You can barely see that safety, but he is there. So he's not open, but I would say that that's the only player. I don't know who that is, but if there's anyone that's going to be good in coverage, it's probably him. The rest of these guys look like clowns out there trying to tackle and hold people. And I mean, hey, if it works, it just works. If you get away with it, then that's just what it is. But this is how a lot of our plays have looked versus UGA over the past couple of seasons, and people don't understand that. It's honestly not that Georgia is doing anything that's groundbreaking. Like this coverage, this is a very simple man under coverage. That's all this is, okay? And they're just, only rushing 3 people, right? Like they're basically trying to bracket us. Like this is called brackets coverage. Either way, y'all, okay, this is something that you do, on the high school level. You do it in, rec league. It's very simple. It's very easy. It's not intricate. It's not complicated. So take that out of y'all's, thought process that Kirby is some genius. He's not. Whenever you can get away with holding, okay, then you can run anything. It doesn't matter. Like it's going to work. So that's something, I feel like our wide receivers will be able to get a whole lot more separation. I think that we'll work some better route combinations, things like that, to, maybe try to rub off some of these guys that are holding us and things like that. You can call it a pick play, whatever you want to. But as long as, it's legal, then it's legal. If they can do this, then, we should be able to just come up there and freaking block them and still get open. But those are my thoughts. Just like with the passing game, I think that our offensive line does hold up pretty well versus their defensive front. Again, we feel like our offensive line this season will be the best that Coach Heupel's ever had. Tight end room is going to be the best that we've ever had. Wide receivers going to be the best that we've ever had. Now, the running backs, I think that they will take a step back from what we had last season in some aspects. But at this point in the season, we don't know how far these players will come along because there's so much youth. We could have a few breakout guys. I think that the ceiling is higher inside of this room, but we're still very young, very inexperienced. So it's going to really be on that offensive line to open up those holes, those running backs, just to run hard, fall forward. If you can get us 4 yards a carry, we're fine. I also don't necessarily love running it right up the middle on every single play. Try to run off tackle some, kind of get a little bit more creative. We may have to change up a few things just to try to make Georgia do some different things if we're struggling with it, because we have struggled versus their odd man fronts, which is what we're seeing here. And all that means is they have an odd number of players playing on the defensive line. So here they've got 3. You know what I mean? They would have 3, and then they would have 2 linebackers playing back there. They're dropping 7 in coverage. I don't want to get too far into the X's and O's, but my whole point is, trust me when I tell you, opportunities are there for us to succeed, and they have been for a very long time. I think that the biggest thing is really going to be with our running game. Can we run the football? Can we kind of stop them from running the ball on a consistent basis? Just clog up the middle of that field. The good news is you can play cover 3. You can play, man coverage. Any sort of a one high look will primarily take away what Georgia likes to do. You can bring down more into the box, things like that. So they're not a complicated team to scheme for by any means. It's extremely, extremely simple. You just got to be able to execute, and you got to be able to get some type of help from the referees, okay? We're not asking for y'all to, show favor in us, but just call the game fair. If you see that we've got 3 people getting held, just throw a flag on one of them. We're not saying you don't have to call it for all of them. Just see one of them, please. Will you please? But those are my thoughts on it. Y'all let me know y'all's down in the comment section. Again, I definitely disagree with what JD had to say. I feel like Tennessee this season is primed and ready to rock and roll and ready to go out here and beat Georgia. Big part of the reason for that is going to be Nico, who we have not talked enough about, I feel like, in this video. But he is going to be the ultimate X factor, because he will be able to make plays like we had talked about with, with Joe Milton kind of missing that, that room to run, people who are open in some tighter windows. Nico is going to attempt to make those plays. I think that Tennessee could definitely win this one, and I think that we could end up winning big. But y'all let me know y'all's thoughts down in the comment section. As always, thank you for sticking all the way to the end. Please make sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, share with your friends, family, and other volunteer fans. We'll see y'all on the next one. Thanks. Peace.